What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday night. So, working title here, Let Me Cook, Let Him Cook, because that's kind of what we've been doing. We've been cooking and talking about stuff. I thought tonight it would be sort of fun. I don't have a big, great recipe for you tonight. I'm just sort of restocking some things. I'm going to be making some rice, putting together our cucumber and chickpea salad like we did a few weeks ago, just kind of refreshing some things. And I think I might make some cornbread and sort of refresh that. We're live on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the album. I don't have too much more information to drop for you this evening, but we're getting really close. And then also, I was reading Romans 8 this morning, and it's similar to Ephesians 1 and 3. It's something I think I'm going to keep going back to, so we'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. Let's go ahead and get our rice started first. I'll let you know that a couple of songs for the new album just got back from mastering a few days ago. Actually, I guess about a week ago now. Super excited about that. And I have another song the mix is just about finished. I'm doing some final proofing on it tonight. It'll probably go out to the mastering engineer tomorrow. A lot of exciting things going on. We're going to start off by It Better Be Amazing Rock. So, Jared, that's a good point. I don't know if you're aware, but I have two projects. My main project, Samuel Day, is more pop focused. So it's more of a pop record for sure. But my second project, Reclaimers, is a hard rock project. We've gotten some radio play with that as well. And I haven't forgotten about it. I have a song in the works for it, but I have to finish this Samuel Day record first, and that's been taking up all of my time. I was actually talking with the team just a few minutes ago with Jacob and Sarah and a good friend of mine, Brooke Moderer, who's a camera operator, one of many great ones that I know. And we're locking in some details for the second half of a music video shoot that we're going to be shooting here in the next few weeks. You know me, some long grain basmati rice. Gonna rinse it, get some of the gluten off of here so it doesn't turn into sticky rice, get it going in the cooker, and then we will, I think, get our cornbread going so that we can have all of our cooking, baking things happening in the background while we work on our chickpea salad. How's everybody this evening? Yeah, so Jared, the thing with the record is there's definitely some stuff on there that can fall into the worship vein. There's some stuff, I kind of joke that my music falls into three categories. My pop music falls into three categories, all that fit under that umbrella. You have regular straight ahead pop music, electronic, radio friendly pop stuff. You have alt pop, so stuff that's a little bit more alternative, a little bit more rock influenced. You might say a little bit darker. I don't know that I love that term, but it is. I mean, so stuff like Rise or Warrior Spirit. And then more CCM type stuff, songs like This Love or Kingdoms Are Watching. So there's a little bit of all of that, right? Those three categories. Appreciate it, man. Have you heard any of the Reclaimer stuff, though? We've got several singles out with that project. I know you're a rock fan, so I think you would dig that one a lot. If you go on Spotify and look up Reclaimers, Jared, knowing your music taste, I think you'd like any of the songs, but in particular, you would probably like Already Over or Fight. Yeah, either of those two I think would probably be right up your alley. Okay, got got 2 cups of rice here. What has everyone else been up to this week? I just got back from a rehearsal for Sunday morning. After I finish up with you all tonight, I have a bit of music work to do, kind of reviewing some things, reviewing a final mix, and then getting some work done on another one for that record stuff. But how about you all? Okay, we've got our rice going, and I don't normally keep milk around. So I got some milk today so that I can make another canned cornbread. So we're going to get that going as well, and then we will finish off by putting together our chickpea salad. I know that over the last few weeks, we had been talking about Ephesians 1 and 3 a bit. But another chapter that I really like in the Bible is Romans chapter 8. The book of Romans has a lot of range, right? Both Ephesians and Romans were written by Paul, so the voice and the personality is similar. But Romans 8 in particular really has a lot of grace in it. And I was talking to someone the other day who was kind of raised in the faith world I was, but he was talking about how getting an understanding of grace was really sort of the missing piece for him. And so there's a couple of verses in Romans chapter 8 that I really appreciate. One is just the first verse, Romans 8:1. There's therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. 2/3 of a cup of milk. 2/3. Where are my thirds? My thirds are over here. And to a lot of people, that verse on its own sounds pretty radical. But it's kind of the point, right? I heard somebody say one time, it's not that having an understanding of grace gives you a free pass to sin, to just do bad things, do whatever you want all the time. But I've also heard them say that if you don't have someone accusing you of that, you're probably not teaching grace strongly enough. Because even Paul had to clarify for himself in Romans, am I saying that we should sin so that grace might much more abound? God forbid. So he actually, even Paul himself, had to clarify that because he knew how radical grace sounded, especially in the ears of people who were classically Jewishly trained. Jared says, I broke out Federalist number 10 today to talk about factions in class, mixed really well with Ephesians 5. I don't know the Federalist Papers well at all. I know the name, I know that they exist, but I can't say that I've read them. So that's interesting. You could probably teach me something about that. Sarah in YouTube says, I once put all of Romans chapter 8 on my... Pretty sure some people thought it was real. Sarah is in YouTube. If you guys don't know her company, Tethered to Jesus, one of the things that she creates is temporary tattoos to help people memorize scripture. So go check them out. But that must have been, was it just in the letters? Was it just the first letter of every word, Sarah? Or was it literally the full text? Because that would be huge. So we got 1/3 of a cup of milk, and I need to break out an egg here. One egg, slightly beaten, so we'll get a whisk. Something else that I love in Romans 8, though, as well, is later on down in the chapter, it says, if the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead also dwell in you, he that raised Christ from the dead shall also quicken and make alive your mortal body. Something I've been, if I can, spiritual sounding term, something I've been meditating on lately. It ties in so much to Ephesians 1 and 3. But it's saying, look, the Holy Spirit is one of the facilitators of healing. I just thought that was really interesting. That's been something I've bringing that back together with grace, with justification, and how all of these things are a real handshake. In the same way we talked about in Ephesians 3, being a focus on the love of God, right? If you don't, let me put this in the positive. If you begin to focus on how much God loves you, if you've accepted Jesus, then an understanding of that love is what's going to give you an attitude toward those things that are contrary to it and say, no. That's not for me. God loves me. No, it was actually the whole chapter, Sarah says. Relatively small text, but I read the whole chapter several times a day because of it. Hey, that's what that's for. That's cool. And really what Paul is dealing with there at the end of Romans 8 is there are people that fall into the ditch of always associating the scriptural ideas of humility and selflessness with just like death and dying. And Paul is saying, hey, look, the flesh is death because of sin, but the spirit is life because of righteousness. So if the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, he that raised Christ from the dead will also quicken and make alive your mortal body. So I think it's a trap, honestly, that Christians often fall into of, while they want to acknowledge, like, yes, I want to die to selfishness. I want to die to these things. I was buried with Christ, but we have to realize we were also raised with him, right? They don't just hold you under when you get baptized. You do come back up. So I find that interesting in how there's a through line there between this idea of the Holy Spirit being our bodies and seeing that connection to what we were talking about last week in Ephesians chapter 1 and Ephesians chapter 3. I have a hot superhero take for you guys tonight as well. And I'll probably talk about this some other time also. I need to heat my oven to 400 degrees and grease a pan with shortening and place it in the oven for 7 to 8 minutes. And I want you all to know that I'm going to use a pot holder glove thing this time. Go, get that going, get the big pan. That is not my big pan, that's my small pan. Here we go. Big pan, personal self-defense pan. If you ever played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you know just how effective this thing can be. Spray it down. Preheat this guy. Okay, here's kind of I think it's a hot take these days. My favorite Superman movie is Man of Steel. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, no, it's too dark, it's too intense. And Superman, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, Superman kills Zod at the end. He wouldn't do that. Look, I think a lot of people see that movie through the lens of where they took that character after that movie, in movies like Batman versus Superman or Justice League or whatever. I think people unfairly judge Henry Cavill's Superman by the direction they took him after Man of Steel in those other movies. But in that movie, in a vacuum, by itself, that is my favorite Superman movie of all time. For a lot of reasons. That needs to heat up for 8 minutes, so we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. In the meantime, we got to mix the batter. Let me make a case to you for why. First of all, it's one of the only movies that has ever captured the speed and power that's needed in the action sequences for a Superman movie. It's almost like Dragon Ball Z, man. The way that there's like kinetic, pneumatic bursts of air when they're punching each other, and the way that they're kind of almost blinking from one side of the room to the next. As a martial artist and a film geek, it's cool to see that sort of superhuman, otherworldly amount of power. I thought the costume design was just gorgeous on that movie. Not just the suit, right? Look, I know it's back in right now with the David Cornsweet movie. I'm not into the trunks. I'm just not. The reason that they were there in the original design of Superman was because superheroes always dressed like acrobats in old, like 1930s comics. But it doesn't make sense. It made more sense that they explained in world where his suit came from. It was his family crest. It was his family. What would you call it? Ceremonial garb, almost, from Krypton. Sarah, I never saw Man of Steel. Sarah, you are missing out. Man of Steel is so good, and I'm telling you all the reasons why. But then if you even just look at the costume design of the people who are living on Krypton, just the armor, the practical armor, it's just beautiful. But there's a lot of allegory in this movie too. And the filmmakers are not Christians. I'm not trying to make some case that they are, but they were aware of what they were pulling from. So if you pay attention in the movie, and people take issue with all of the property damage that happens in that movie, right? Well, Superman, the buildings are getting destroyed while he's fighting Zod and all this stuff, and that's just so not Superman. You got to remember that in that movie, he has just gotten his powers, and he's like a dog that hasn't grown into his paws yet. He doesn't know how to use his powers properly. So he can barely control and like kinetically handle himself. And he's trying to fight a military leader from his homeworld who has training. Of course it's messy, but it's not messy because his heart's in the wrong place. It's messy because he can't control his own body. And then you talk about all the allegory in that movie. They did a lot of, honestly, they did a lot of Christ allegory in that movie. And you can jump in a ditch one way or the other with it, right? You can say, well, that's blasphemous. They shouldn't do that. Or you could jump in the other ditch, which is where I tend to land. And it's like, well, no, that's cool. It's kind of cool that they're pointing that way with the character, right? I'm not saying Superman is a replacement for Jesus. I'm just saying he's sort of like representative of those redemptive ideas. So in the movie, they specifically say that he's 33 years old. His father is out of the picture by the time he's actually going about his work, similar to how Joseph, you never hear about Joseph after Jesus' childhood. His father from another world kind of guides him through the process and substantiates who he is. He has a death and resurrection kind of arc when he's taken on the Kryptonian ship and his powers sort of leave him for a while. And the music, not to mention, I really love the music in that. I know the original Superman theme is really bright and hopeful, but there's something weighty about, I believe it's Hans Zimmer's score for Man of Steel, that's simple, but it's really warm and charged and energetic. Just, oh my goodness. And the thing is people have argued, well, the movie's a little bit too gritty. It's a little bit too dark. And to that, I respond, I hear that, and I totally get it. But I think that it's really interesting to see a character like Superman grasping to hold on to his heart of gold, which he does, in a world that is contrary to him, in a world that is constantly trying to push him over the edge of morality. He's saying, this is terrible, this sucks, but I can't lose who I am. I have to still be a beacon of hope. And I think that is a really interesting contrast and juxtaposition, especially in terms of screenwriting, filmmaking, and even the visual identity of the film being a little more muted, being a little bit more high contrast, a little bit more impactful. That really works for me because it's putting the heart of his character to the test. Okay, you all see this glove. So did I just throw away the instructions? I did. Okay, so we're going to just pour this into the bowl, into the pan, into our hot pan that has been heating up. Actually, it needs more time. We need a couple more minutes on that. So in the meantime, Start prepping these vegetables. Our rice is cooking. Our pan is preheating. Let's get ourselves a second mixing bowl. And if you want to take the Christ metaphor further with Superman, like he's an otherworldly being whose love interest is a earthly woman, right? So his bride, even though he is celestial, his bride is earthly. That's interesting too. Okay, we need to start cutting things. I'm just trying to decide. Let's start with the chickpeas. We need to strain these out and rinse them. I have the recipe basically memorized by now. I've made it that many times. So, Sarah, you brought up Punisher. Obviously, I've seen the Punisher within the Daredevil universe, but I actually haven't watched his solo show yet. That's like the one of those Netflix era. No, I haven't seen that one or Jessica Jones yet. I already know that like Jessica Jones is really cool and well written, but I also know there's some parts I'm gonna have to skip in it. So, but yeah, I mean, John Bernthal has been spotted on the set of the next season of Daredevil, like that they're finishing up filming right now, right? Which that's a whole separate conversation we're gonna have, and I'm not gonna have it on live stream here because I will for sure spoil things for people because that's a little too recent. That's a little too fresh. I do want to remind you guys, though, that album stuff is coming up. Finishing this album has been a big involved project. But I was thinking about this today. My plan after it's out is not to like stop making singles. I actually think I want to put out some singles in pretty quick succession after the album has had some time to breathe. And I think I'm finally set up in a place with my production and mixing stuff where I'm going to be able to hopefully do that pretty quickly, more quickly than I ever have in the past. So that's exciting. All right, let's start cutting some. All right, our pan should be preheated, so let's go ahead and glove up and get that out and get that batter put together. Shoo! Even through the glove, that's hot. Pour our batter in here. Awesome. Keeping the glove on to place this back in the oven. And that needs to stay in there for, I think it said 25 minutes? 20 to 25 minutes. So about 8:15 Central Time, if you're watching from Central Time. All right. Let's get to prepping our other stuff. Let's actually start with the cucumber. I already washed these vegetables ahead of time, so I'm good to just start digging in. Jared asks, would Superman beat Darth Vader? Man, that's a superpower beatdown episode waiting to happen, isn't it? I guess that depends on, well, part of that depends on what part of his development Darth Vader is in, right? Like when Anakin first becomes Darth Vader, he's not at the point to where he can like stop a starship with the Force, but that eventually happens way, way later on, right? I think it somewhat depends on what version of Superman we're talking about too, but I would potentially argue yes, Superman could defeat Darth Vader, because all of the people that Darth Vader fights are essentially normal human beings. normal human beings who are like really adept in the Force, but still normal human beings, right? They don't have, while Superman is devoid of the Force, he's got a lot of other things going for him. So I think Supes comes out on top in that situation. That's just one man's opinion, though. So one of the things I've been experimenting with over the last week is artwork for the album. Something that, we as artists often think about is, does the art need to be a picture of me so that people know who they're listening to? They get a face with the music, or does it need to just be some iconic representative piece of art? And I need to do a little bit more. I don't need to. I could do a little bit more research on this, but I think in terms of the albums that I've seen over the years, usually if it's a solo artist, a pop artist, something like that, I think you typically see some form of picture of the person. I think if it's a band, that's not always the case. I think bands tend to lean into more standalone artwork or something iconic, right? Let us know if you need t-shirts. Oh, that's cool. Do you do like screen printing or direct to garment? I have an online store that is automatically does DTG printing when people place an order. And that's going to be a later on project, is doing some new merch designs, which I have a lot of merch on my website. If you go to samueldayofficial.com, go to the store, we got embroidered hats. I've got some custom printed shoes in there, obviously t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops. I think there's even a set of socks in there. It's been a minute. I've created all the designs myself, and it's been a while since I've gone in and updated them. Because one of the things I've been trying to keep my eye on the ball about is just making new music. It's very easy to get distracted by just making new YouTube videos or posting content to social. All of those things are good and sometimes necessary, but sometimes they can also be a distraction from just actually getting new music done. All right, there's our cucumbers, our chickpeas, or garbanzo beans, if you want to call them that. We're going to go to our tomatoes next, our Roma tomatoes. Cut that end off. I don't like the way that end looks. I know I said this last week, but I will say it again. It's very good to have sharpened knives. I was struggling for a long time to get good clean cuts when I was working through this stuff before. And now I'm just passing through these tomatoes so much more easily. So this recipe I got from Sarah, and it's just your can of chickpeas, 1 cucumber, kind of diced, 2 Roma tomatoes diced, half a red onion, squeeze in 2 limes, dice in 2 Hass avocados, put a bunch of salt and pepper in there, and then, as the recipe says, if you're feeling fancy, feta cheese. I've never done it that way. I'm not a huge fan of feta cheese, but that's the recipe in case you wanted it. It's also just a good sneaky way for me to get myself eating more vegetables. That way I don't feel like I have to put together a salad every time I eat. I can just scoop out some of this and be good to go. I don't know if you've been watching my Instagram story about the wasps, but I killed a bunch more wasps yesterday, I think. Probably took out about another 50 of them. Something about Texas, and this is something that I thought about the other day too. there are some people that I don't think they know that I'm in Texas. I never really made like a life update post when I came here. I tagged it. I tagged the places that I was, the churches I was at, the concert venues I was at. So it wasn't a secret that I was here, but I didn't talk about it really in depth. And then I ran into someone here the other day, a Texas native, who knew I had been here, but didn't know that I was still here. And so I'm like, man, maybe I need to make like a life update post and tell people, yes, your boy is still in Texas. I'm still here, you know? I'm really working with a lot of people here on the new album. I told you guys last week that working with Jacob and Sarah Clodfelter on a couple of tracks on it. I'm not sure if I mentioned, though, that I'm also working with Tehila Rose. She's got some stuff on Spotify. Great R&B type singer. Good friend of mine. Oh, man. That pit is in there. Normally that comes out so much easier. This avocado, pretty, not super ripe. That's okay. We can deal with that. It just, yeah, it makes it a little harder to dice and cut through. So I got to be really careful with my own hands in this situation. Up. Yeah, it's tough. I really got to watch it. I'm going to set it down. Normally I don't have to do that, but so I'm going to get all the way through these layers. I think that's necessary. So yeah, I am working on a track with Tehila for this record. And we did some vocal tracking a couple weeks ago. She's still got a few more things to send me to finish it up. And it's one of the last checklist things I have for the album. Jared, thank you so much, man. That's really kind of you. I appreciate it. You know, I'm going to be honest. When I first got here, I didn't want to be here. I didn't like it. I was here trying to do the right thing, trying to be obedient to God, honestly. But wow, this avocado is so fresh, it doesn't even want to separate from the peel. Like I can't. Wow, this is nuts. There's the outer peel of the rind or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't normally. It just scoops right out. This is a whole thing, dude. Let me see if I can just sort of. It's breaking apart. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm gonna have to do surgery here. Try and get through this quickly. No, when I first got here, I didn't really want to come, right? I had some stuff going on at home. Not bad stuff, but like I had some things cooking at home, more or less. And I was like, man, if I go down to Texas, and I came down here for Bible school originally, it's either going to be a great decision and I'll meet a lot of new people, or it's going to be a really stupid decision. This could be the dumbest decision I've ever made because I'm right in the middle of so many things and I could just be torpedoing my life. And it took me a while. I mean, it took me months to even just adjust my attitude. There were so many times I was right on the edge of just leaving. And I'm like, people keep talking about how Texas is so great, but the weather down here is not actually great. You know, I miss my trees. I miss my temperate weather of the Cincinnati area in Ohio. But I have met so many people down here that I'm now working with and working on projects with that I never would have met if I hadn't come. So, you know, there's something to be said about that. It's going to take real violence for me to get this pit out of this avocado. Because as you can see, I already stuck it with a knife and tried to twist it out. And I'm destroying the pit. The avocado is so tough that the pit is being destroyed. The inside of the seed is being destroyed, but it's not wanting to slide out of the flesh of the avocado. Ugh. This is the thing. I get my groceries delivered from Walmart because my time is precious and I have a lot going on. And I'm like, I don't need to go drive all the way to the grocery store, try to find everything I'm looking for, spend all this time there, and then drive all the way back. I'll get my groceries delivered. I'll pay a one-time yearly subscription fee for free deliveries. It'll be great. And it is great. But the only potential downside is that they're going to pick your produce out for you. And usually the shoppers will try to do a good job, but every once in a while you get avocados that are just not ripe. Oh man, this is serious. The weather is, Abby says, the weather is a very valid reason to want to leave Texas. I've discovered there are some beautiful places in Texas. When I was on the team for the spring retreat, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a youth event, a series of services, and goes on for about a week. They have cabins and stuff. So I was on the worship team for spring retreat, and it was down in the Houston area. It was beautiful there. The trees, there were big, tall pine trees. I felt like I was in Michigan out there by that lake. And it amazed me because I thought that if I went further south in Texas, I thought it would just get hotter and more dry and more desolate. And that wasn't the case at all. Man, I got to find a faster way to get through these avocados. It's taking forever. I'm having to literally cut them out of the skin. But it was beautiful down there. And I think it's because it's closer to the Gulf. Since it's close to the Gulf, I guess there's just more moisture in the air. But it really did surprise me. Wow. I got so little out of that avocado. I hope this one's better, dude. If it's not, I'm going to have to use a different strategy to actually get the fruit out. That feels weird, but it's true. Avocados definitely feel like they should be a vegetable, but they're a fruit. Because they have a seed. Okay. Yeah, that one's just about the same. Like very underripe. If I press down normally, like I'm pushing down really hard. Normally my fingers should just smush right through that. Okay. How do I do this? Maybe if I just quarter it, maybe I can just peel the flesh off the outside. If I can grab a corner, maybe. It's breaking. It's breaking like a watermelon rind. Maybe a spoon. See, just getting pieces. You guys are watching me struggle with an avocado. I didn't know this was going to be the content of the night. Spoon. We're going to try a spoon here. Maybe if I can. Yeah. Okay. Piece still broke off. Jared's asked, did you say the name of your album? You're very astute, sir. I did not. No, I haven't said it yet. That has been a conversation, and I believe I have settled on a name for the record. Not quite ready to release it yet because I sort of want to get some visual identity stuff together for it. The font, the artwork. I'll probably announce the name before those things are 100% in place. I just want to get a little bit closer to them before I do. But thank you for asking, and good catch. This avocado is as tough as a raw potato. It's crunchy like an apple when I cut through it. That's nuts. That is nuts. But I'm committed now. I've already started. I've cut the other fruits. I can't hold them up for the sake of my avocado here. There we go. Okay, this is working though. Just kind of cut it out with a spoon, scoop it out, and then I can just chop it up with my knife. So much resistance on that. Trying to keep an eye on the time for the sake of that cornbread. How's everybody else? Like an unripe melon, honestly, dude. Honestly. What has everybody else been up to this week? I want to make sure that these streams don't just turn into me talking about me all the time. Okay. I'm trying to quarter off a piece of this and separate it from the, yeah. Should have read The Art of War before trying to cut this avocado. Didn't know I was going to have to be Sun Tzu to deal with some fruit. I told you, real violence. I will tell you, though, regarding the album, that we're looking at a release date early next year, and it's going to be kicked off by a sequence of singles coming out to kind of really ramp up to it. So you'll be getting a big flood of new stuff from me all at once, and I'm really excited for you to hear it. It's always an interesting dynamic because by the time even just one new song has come out, you know, I'm not just the artist, I'm the producer and the mixing engineer. So you've heard it hundreds of times by the time it actually comes out. But the thing is, despite that, I still listen to my own music all the time. Even though I've heard it so many times, like, I legitimately enjoy what I make. And I think that should be the case, right? Like, you should like what you're creating. It might be a little bit different if you're contracted. If you're just a contract session musician and you get hired to play on an album that maybe isn't your favorite type of music, okay, that's different. But if it's you, if it's your stuff, I would hope you like your own music enough to want to listen to it from time to time. I don't listen to my old stuff as much, almost at all. I really don't listen to my old stuff very much at all because I have changed a lot, not only stylistically, but just in terms of skill on every level too. But that's natural. That's how it goes. Look at this. Look at how hard this is hanging on to staying in there. I'm just cutting around it at this point. What's up, Callista? Did I miss the cucumbers? You did miss the cucumbers. The cucumbers are already diced up in there. I have cornbread in the oven, and I have rice cooking. What I was telling people at the top of the stream is that I'm not making, aside from the chickpea salad, which most of you have seen before, I'm not really making a new recipe so much as I'm just topping up on things I normally keep around. So rice, cornbread, chickpea salad. And I still have some leftovers from that chicken and rice casserole I made with you guys last week too, so I have to pace myself right now. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to get out of these avocados. Wow. Felt like Michelangelo carving out David. Okay, all that is left is the onion, the red onion. We're going to do half of this red onion and then squeezing our 2 limes into there. Oh no, Callista's really broken up about the cucumbers. Look, I've said it before. I know it feels a little ridiculous, but if I'm going to cut this onion, I got to put goggles on. It gets to my eyes, dude. Don't judge me for this. Yes, these are the goggles that I distressed and used as a prop for an upcoming project. But, well, actually, no, I see daylight in the bottom. I better make sure that they're at least kind of sealed. Okay, let's do this quick. Let's get through this. Cut the ends off of this red onion. You only need about half of it for this recipe. We've got to get this outer skin off of it first, though. So we'll take a layer off. Insert the Shrek joke of your choice here. Yeah, if you look back on my Instagram, you can actually see the process I went through to distress these goggles. You can see that they look like they've been through a dust storm and been through kind of a post-apocalyptic world. That's the idea. And I need to do that to a lot more things. But there are many other projects on my plate right now that are a bit more important. And so I'm trying to finish those first. One of which is finishing up the details for this music video shoot here in a couple of weeks. And I think by the end of tonight, I will have a date set for that shoot, which is great news for me. Great news for you too, because it means more new stuff, right? Yeah, thank you, Francisco. It's eye protection from cutting this onion. I use what I've got. Okay, I need a container. Come on. Stuff falling out of my cabinet. Okay, so we're going to put half of this onion in a container for later. I promise that the goggles aren't just a gimmick to get people to watch the live. I just don't do well with cutting onions. Okay, got our half a red onion. Get this diced up. Trying to work fast because the last time I used the goggles to help me, they helped. They truly did help, but it wasn't perfect. Eventually the fumes got through, and I'm hoping that that does not happen to me tonight. So I'm trying to work safely but quickly. Plus my cornbread should be ready like any moment here. I'll have to pick out a song to do another lyric analysis on sometime soon. I was thinking maybe Meant to Be or Time to Live. Time to Live is a less talked about song from my catalog. And it was part of that turning point era for me where I had come off of trying to do rock and pop under the same umbrella. So Spotlight, Time to Live, and then things really finally settled all the way when Rise came out after that. And then I really kind of hit my stride in understanding some of the electronic pop production and alternative pop production too. Oh, yeah, I feel it. Come on. We're almost there. We just have 1/4 left. Oh, push through. Oh, push through. Just get the air seal on that. Okay. 1 more quarter. Watch your fingers. Stay safe. Oh, I don't know what it is, guys. When I was in middle school, I learned that I'm a super taster. So apparently some people taste a wider spectrum, or they taste certain chemicals that other people don't taste, or at least don't taste as strongly. We did a test in like my middle school science class to determine which of us were super tasters, and I was one. And I don't know how that relates to the way that cutting onions makes my eyeballs feel, but I feel like maybe there's a connection. Correlation doesn't equal causation, but you know, this superpower is a little bit double-edged. Okay. Okay, I haven't like left the cutting board and had to go like wash my eyes out yet. So I'm winning. I'm winning today. Oh my goodness. I'm about to have to though. Okay, these things gotta come off. I made it longer than I usually do. Goodness. Come on. So for those of you who join regularly, start talking about Romans 8 a bit at the top of the stream. I would encourage you to read through it because I'll probably go back to that for the next few weeks. I was saying before, it's a chapter that really says a lot about grace, even though it's contained within a book that covers a lot of different subjects. So I would encourage you to go read it. And then honestly, you can DM me during the week any part of it that stood out to you, or you can just bring it up on next week's live stream. Okay, all that's left is the limes, but we're going to get this cornbread out of the oven first. Turn the light on. Okay, look. The glove is on. Oh yeah, that cornbread is done. Okay, I'm switching the glove to the other hand. I have to be really careful because some of you saw me burn myself a few weeks ago. I'm switching the glove to the other hand. I'm getting my... Well, I was going to get my metal spatula out, and I just realized that it's actually in my other pan right now. What am I going to cut this with? I think I can cut this cornbread with this wooden spatula. So, glove. I think I can just... Oh yeah, that works. It's not quite as precise, but look at that. Big pan of cornbread. I'm going to level with you too. I also have a big rotisserie chicken in the fridge that I've eaten a good portion of, but I'm not all the way through yet. That's part of the reason that I'm not making like a large main course tonight. I'm just refilling some stuff. And since I got some milk, which I almost never do because I don't really drink milk. As a singer, milk doesn't really do a lot for me. I keep almond milk around, and I use that when I'm making like protein shakes when I come out of the gym or whatever. There we go. We've squared it up. It's like we're at Cracker Barrel together. Okay, I'm going to set that to the side, turn the handle away from me so I don't grab the handle. And lastly, we have our limes. Quick, make a prop. That's the thing. It takes time. So the reason that I was so adamant, and I've talked about this before on other live streams, but the reason I was so adamant about weathering these, putting a paint wash on them and some synthetic dirt and really cutting through and scoring them and all of those things. And I watched a lot of videos about the process. One of the things that takes me out of the moment whenever I watch an independent film or a music video is when the props look too freshly bought from Amazon. It takes me out of the moment. And it's not so much that I'm in love with the process. I'm not one of those people who needs things to take a long time because it's all about the process. No, dude, if there was a faster way to do things, often I would do it. But what I do care about is the end result and how effective it is. And I didn't want it to look cheap. Over the past few weeks, Nathan says, we've seen Sam give us a perfect IRL example of a burnt hand teaches best. Is that a phrase? Is that something people say? Is that actually a saying? Remember, son. It just sounds like something like an abusive father in an animated movie would say. Remember, son, a burnt hand teaches best. Okay. If you're joining on TikTok, by the way, because I'm streaming to like 3 different platforms tonight, or if just on any platform you're joining for the first time, be sure to follow Samuel Day on Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. The goal is to hit 1,000 followers on each of those platforms and then ramp onward and upward from there. We reached that goal on Instagram not too long ago, and we're just shy of it on YouTube, but I would encourage you to go find me on those platforms. You can just Google Samuel Day to go check out my music on Spotify, and then you should be able to find the other platforms from there. course, the music is on Apple Music as well. Amazon. Does anyone know anybody who actually uses Amazon Music? My stuff is on there, but it's not a service that I use. Or Tidal. I remember that Tidal's whole value proposition, the whole thing that was supposed to make them set apart and different from other people, was that they had a focus on high definition audio, right? Lossless quality sound. And I don't know if that got them enough customers. They still exist. They're still around. Especially now that I think I saw Spotify and some of the other companies are starting to upgrade their audio quality in general just to stay competitive. It's a little bit of an arms race where that's concerned. I'm really just digging into these limes. It's not a pretty sight. Don't copy my technique, but it's working. How's my rice doing? Is my rice even cooking? My rice was never cooking. So I guess that'll be done later tonight. Dude, your voices make this more entertaining. I would love to get, Callista, I appreciate the call out. I would love to get more into voice acting. I actually have a voice acting reel of some different characters. You know, you've got your young protagonist who's ready to take on the world. You've got maybe your old West guys. They're low when they're down here, ready to draw. I came back to this town to find you, you know.
You've got your little cartoon characters. I'm just the baby.
So it would be fun to get to use that skill set maybe for some video game or animated movie stuff or whatever. A lot of those voices that I have are pretty cartoony. I'd like to get better at my RP, my British received pronunciation. It's okay. I've kind of got a baseline, but it's a bit forced. When I listen back to myself, it's not very good. You've got that. You've got Cockney, which is a bit different. Going right round the corner, get a bit fish and chips, isn't it? Like, see those aren't very good. I really probably need to find some dialect coach videos and work those out. I've got a baseline for them, but it's not stellar yet. But I have a good swath of like range of character voices that I can do. You know, you've got kind of like your Gollum type monster.
We'll have to come back for it.
You know, that kind of really squishy thing. Noodleman says, gotta hop off to read my daily Bible chapter, Job 22. Have a good one. I'm in Job 2, man. Job is a lot of arguing between people with incomplete ideas. What I find so unfortunate is the way that people quote parts of Job as if they are the word of the Lord. And really, the book of Job reports to us what was said by different people. Not everything Job says is not everything Job the person says is always 100% accurate, or his friends. There are shades of truth in what each of them have to say, but they're all arguing with each other, trying to drill down. So it's an interesting read for sure, but I'm in there at the same time. What's up, Aunt Julie? Good to see you. I see you in there. Okay, we're going to start mixing this up. Combining this all together. This is always so colorful, though. It always looks good. Even if my avocados are really underripe. I think I'm going to have to let this mature for a couple of days. Going to add a bunch of salt and pepper to this. Turn off my oven so it's not sitting there baking hot air. What are you making? So I just had a family member jump in on Instagram, for those of you who are watching on YouTube and TikTok. Usually I have like some big main course that I'm making. That's not the case tonight. You'd have to go back to some of the older live streams to see some of those. But tonight I'm just sort of topping off some side items that I normally keep around. So I made some cornbread. I've got that in a pan over here that I just finished up. Got some cornbread. I've got my rice cooking over to the side. I typically will just always keep a container of rice in the fridge and ready to go because you can mix it with chicken, or it just complements a lot of things. It goes into a lot of recipes, so I just always keep rice around. And then this is my friend Sarah's chickpea salad recipe. Somebody might argue it maybe it's more of a cucumber salad. It depends on how you perceive it. Looks great. And this recipe is really simple. I can send it to you. But it's 1 can of chickpeas. You rinse them. It's 1 whole cucumber, just kind of diced. 2 diced Roma tomatoes. Half a red onion, also diced. And I think that's it. Oh, and then 2 limes and two Hass avocados. And then you just sort of stir it all up at the end and add a bunch of salt and pepper, and there you go. I'll keep a bunch of it around in the fridge pretty often. You can add feta cheese at the end if you're feeling fancy, but I'm not much of a feta fan, so I don't typically do that. I'm going to do one more pass of salt and pepper here because it typically takes more than you think it's going to take. To really get this to blend together. And I honestly, this recipe, I find it's good when you first make it. It's better the day after when everything has had time to kind of mature and work together. And there we go. I think that's finished. My avocados were so unripe tonight. I don't even know if I'm going to eat any of this tonight. I think I got to give them some time to adjust themselves. Yeah, I can send you the recipe as soon as I jump off of here. It's very, very simple. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Working title for these Tuesday night live streams, Let Me Cook. Let Him Cook. I don't know. Maybe there's something better. As we continue on, you're going to get more and more news from me about the upcoming album. That's super excited. I'm going to jump off of here once I get all of this food stuff put away and do some work on that album. All right. I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Until next time, onward and upward.